What's up guys, my name is Ace, and I can finally let you guys know that I've had early access to the full game of Black Ops Cold War for the past couple days now. Big thanks to Activision for hooking that up, and by the way, I'm allowed to stream this game now, so I'm most likely going to be live on Twitch quite a bit throughout the day today. So if you guys want to come and see the full build of the game and ask me anything you want about the game, I will of course leave a link to my Twitch in the description down below. But in today's first video, what I wanted to talk about is basically just my very early initial impressions of the full build of the game, mainly in relation to the beta and the issues that I had in the beta. Now keep in mind, we only had access to actually play against other people for a few hours, so it was very limited. They've had the servers off for the most part, although I have had access to custom games and zombies and the campaign. So this isn't necessarily like a full review of the full build of the game, it's more so just my initial thoughts based on what I experienced in the beta and how things have changed since then. Now yesterday we got that huge blog post where they detailed a bunch of the changes they made, but it turns out it wasn't all of the changes. So that's where a lot of this video comes in. So basically what I'm going to do here is just go through point by point on the things that I was giving feedback on and I wanted to see changed or improved before the full launch of the game. And let's just go through my list from that video. First thing I had here is disbanding lobbies. At this point, it looks like that's still going to be sticking around. The quick play system is still in place, and most likely we're going to be seeing disbanding lobbies, but I don't know for sure at this point because, like I said, the servers weren't technically on. We were in an environment where everything was controlled and we were all searching for the same thing at the same time, and we had to back out between games and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if that's changed or not, but it kind of looks like it hasn't, which if that's the case, that's going to be quite disappointing for me. Next up, one of the big issues I had with the beta and the alpha was, on console at least, there was no way at all to check your ping in-game. And now, with the full build of the game, you can do this. It looks like they copied and pasted it from Black Ops 4. So with this, you just open up your start menu, tab over, and you can see your ping in-game, which is great, because if they didn't have that, that would have been completely unacceptable for a AAA first-person shooter. As for the next thing, this was one of my biggest issues in the beta, and I made an entire dedicated video on this. This was visibility. In the beta, enemy players would often blend in with the background super well, like they wouldn't pop out at all, it wouldn't look 3D, they would just kind of blend in. And especially if they were at a bit of a range, things got quite blurry at longer ranges throughout the beta, at least on console. I've been playing on PS4 Pro. And I've got to say, in the full build of the game, I am seeing some improvements in these areas, although I don't know if it's perfect yet. I'm going to need some more playtime with that. But the first thing I noticed is it appears they have added a little bit of illumination on character models if they're in a darker area. So it will help make them pop a little bit more. There's a bit more depth perception there. And I noticed that pretty much right away, so that is a great improvement. And then also, just in general with the visibility, I feel like they've optimized things a bit better than in the beta, and things don't seem to be as blurry, for instance, at longer ranges. It doesn't have that same sort of blur. Things are much more clear. And this also applies to the gun in your hand. When you're aiming down sight, there was a weird blur effect on the gun as well that looked really bad in the beta. It seems like they've cleaned that up and it looks significantly better at launch. Now, does the game look perfect? No. Does it even look as good as Modern Warfare? I still don't think so, at least not on PS4 Pro if we're comparing apples to apples. I'm sure it's going to look a lot better on the next-gen consoles as well as on PC. But I gotta say that I immediately noticed an improvement from the beta when it comes to visibility. But this brings us to the next thing on my list, and this is the movement. I noticed a lot in the alpha and the beta, it often looked like enemies were on skates, like their footstep movements didn't correspond with their actual character movement, so it looked like they were almost sliding around on their feet. And part of that may have been connection issues, but overall, in my little bit of a play session that I had against other YouTubers, I didn't notice that same issue. It's not something that at least was immediately obvious to me. Maybe it's still there, but it's not something I noticed at all, and I couldn't say the same in the beta. I was noticing it all the time in the beta. Also with movement, the sliding. The sliding was just too fast. The acceleration was too fast in the beta, and enemy players could essentially teleport with a slide. At least that's what it looks like from a third-person perspective. They've really toned that down nicely now to where it doesn't feel like you gain a ridiculous advantage for sliding on somebody. I personally tried to mix in a few slides to see how good it would be against enemy players because it was so effective in the beta, and it generally didn't work out for me too well. Like, I was getting caught sliding quite a bit, so it seems like it's much easier to track people while they're sliding now. But at the same time, I still felt like the slide was useful. It still felt like I got a good boost out of that slide, and therefore I think the change they made to the slide was very good. As for the next big issue that I had, this was just to do with the overall aiming and the aim assist as well. So I'm talking from a console player's perspective with controller. I don't know how it is on mouse and keyboard. But in the alpha, to me, everything felt fine, and then something changed with the beta, and the aiming felt really weird, and the aim assist felt really bad. Basically, the best way to describe the aim assist was it was way too strong, but that would also work against you in a lot of situations as well. So sometimes it felt like you didn't even have to try to control your recoil or track your target or anything, and aim assist just sort of did it for you. And that wasn't a very rewarding feeling at all, to not really have much input in what's going on in that gunfight. But then there were the other times that were really, really frustrating, where your aim assist literally couldn't track onto target. It was more like aim resist. It was pushing my aim away from the target because it was so strong. And that was a really big issue I had throughout the beta that I haven't experienced yet. Keeping in mind, limited playtime. We'll just have to wait and see. But I've also been testing against bots in custom games, and I've managed to actually test out the aim assist a little bit. And I gotta say, the aim assist is feeling much more like a traditional Call of Duty now. And it looks like whatever they did in the beta to that, I think they just straight up reverted it. Or whatever they did to it, they improved it quite a bit, based on my experience with it so far. So again, quite happy with what I'm seeing here as well. Now, moving on to just a few other changes and improvements I've noticed. One thing is when you go underwater on Armada, if you're swimming underwater, they made the visibility much worse, so you can't see very well. You can't see super far underwater, and if you dive down fairly deep, you can't see up and see enemies that are above the surface very well. And I think this makes for a much better balance now between people that are above the surface and below the surface of the water, because in the alpha and the beta, you were at a huge disadvantage if you were above the surface of the water, and you had a huge advantage for diving deep under the water. You could see out way better than they could see in. That's no longer the case, and it seems to be much more balanced as it is right now. Additionally, something I really like that they changed from beta till launch is operators are now separated by their factions. So you're not going to have a Woods player on your team and that exact same Woods player on the other team, and that's really helpful for distinguishing between teammates and enemies, and I'm really glad that they managed to do that. And yeah, aside from that, I don't know what else to say here. The weapon inspect is really nice. I'm glad they added that. There's also executions in the game, just like in Modern Warfare, so that's pretty cool. And overall, I think they've made some really nice improvements from beta till launch. They've worked out a lot of the issues that I've had, or at least improved on them slightly. Maybe some of them could still use a bit more work, but there have been some great improvements, and most of my issues have been addressed at least in some way. Now, having said this, it's not all positive with the full build of the game. One of my biggest concerns, and I said this in my final beta review, is a lack of content at launch. I was really worried that we wouldn't be seeing much content at launch. The rumors are correct. As far as I know, unless there's some other day one update that brings more maps, there are only 8 6v6 maps in this game at launch, and 2 of those are just cutouts of the combined arms maps, Armada as well as Crossroads. Additionally, we don't really have a ton of base weapons either. So with this topic, I think it deserves its own video actually, so I'm going to make another video today talking all about the lack of content at launch for Cold War, because I do feel this is a fairly serious issue that could be a deal breaker for a lot of people, and I want to make sure people are informed about this stuff. So expect a video on that at some point throughout the day today. And yeah, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's video. It's nice to see a lot of my beta feedback has been addressed, and overall the gameplay has improved from the beta till launch. Of course, I'd like to know in the comment section below, what are you guys thinking about what you see as far as the gameplay in the background, as well as the changes and improvements that I've mentioned throughout this video. Just let me know all of those thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.